Hey, what's up, everybody? It's SuperHappyJim here, and after a good long hiatus, I'm back on YouTube with a new series, a new format of video. I recently bought a Steam Deck, and I absolutely love this thing. It is fantastic in so many different ways. But if you own one, you know that some games work just fine out of the box, and then other ones take a bit of tweaking to get where you want them to be. So I thought I would reboot this channel, I guess, to show off some games that maybe you haven't heard of, that are a great experience on the deck, and then how to adjust some other ones to get them looking their best. We're starting with a game that is very near and dear to my heart, but definitely needs a good bit of tweaking. It's Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. It's a BioWare RPG, so, you know, from the people who made Mass Effect and Dragon Age. And you can sink a good bit of time into this one. It'll take you about 30 hours to beat. At the time, it got Game of the Year from IGN, GameSpot, Computer Gaming World, PC Gamer, and I think this game deserves all of the credit it got at the time and to this day. That being said, take it with a grain of salt. I've beat this game maybe more than any other game in my life, and I am reviewing this through the chunkiest of nostalgia glasses. This is my first playthrough in probably a decade, but I'm only a couple hours in, and I am really enjoying it. First off, addressing the elephant in the room, this game refuses to work at native resolution, and that applies to Steam Deck and your desktop computer. At best, you can edit a random INI file and maybe get it to launch once at a native resolution, but then after that, it's just going to reset and go back anyway. Thankfully, it runs at 800 by 600, which is really not that different to the native Steam Deck resolution anyway. Don't mess with the setting. There's one other video option that seems like a higher resolution, but it just adds a border to the game. Not great. And then for the other video settings, you can't really touch any of these without the game crashing or not launching. So the only thing you'll be changing is anisotropic filtering, which you can change to the max. FSR on this game works absolutely fantastic. If you don't know, FSR is built into the Steam Deck, and it's an AI upscaler from AMD. And what it does is it takes games at a lower resolution, and using AI will upscale it to a native resolution. This can't get around the 4:3 aspect ratio, but it does make the game look a lot more crisp, and I've used this game on my 4K TV with FSR, and it actually looks really great. I think because the models and the textures are pretty simple, FSR can do a really good job of making it look a lot crisper. As for the controls, this game has no controller support natively, so for everything, we're going to be taking keyboard and mouse controls and applying it to the Steam Deck, which gets a little funky, but I've tried to make it as streamlined as possible. I modified the most popular controller layout, which is the Galactic Basic profile, but I wound up changing almost all of it. For the left analog stick, they had it set up as kind of like tank controls, and I did not like that, so I just changed it to WASD, which will get you the very standard character movement you're used to in third-person games, and then the right touchpad is set up just like you're used to with the joystick for camera controls. Because there's so much pointing and clicking with the mouse in this game, I set it up so that the left trigger will change the right touchpad from your camera controls to mouse controls, and your right trigger will work as the left click for you to select things. For me, this was very intuitive and made it super easy to switch back between the kind of regular control scheme you're used to on a controller and then mouse and keyboard. For the left touchpad, if you scroll clockwise with it, that's going to scroll down in menus, and then counterclockwise is going to scroll up. You can even kind of swipe your finger up and down on this touchpad like a phone, and it'll scroll pretty well in menus. And then if you hold down the left trigger, the left touchpad becomes a radial menu, which will let you select all of the normal menu tabs from the game. And I tried to get all the icons to match the in-game icons best as possible. The L1 and R1 buttons will switch your focus, you know, from different enemies to doors, lockers, and stuff like that. For the face buttons, the A button will pause and resume combat. This game does have kind of pseudo turn-based combat, which I'll get into a bit later, so the A button's very important there. The B button will just work as your back button if you have a menu open. The Y face button will switch your characters, and then the X button is stealth mode. There is a lot of dialogue in this game. So instead of having to use the mouse to click on whichever dialogue option you want every time, I have the D-pad set up to be numbers 1 through 8. So if you start with up on the D-pad, that is number 1, right on the D-pad is number 2, down is number 3, and left is number 4. And then if you hold down the same buttons on the D-pad, up is number 5, right is number 6, down is number 7, and left is number 8. This makes dialogue really fast and easy, and it also applies to combat as well. When you are in combat and you select an enemy, it'll give you a few different attack options. You can select the first attack option with number 1, second attack option with number 2, and then number 5 winds up being your med pack, so you can just hold down up to activate a med pack, and so on. Right now, Steam does not let you share a link to go to a direct controller profile, and you can't even search within the controller profiles, which is insane. I hope they change that soon. But with that being said, my profile is Galactic Basic, SHJ Edit. You should be able to just scroll down a little bit in the controller profiles and find it pretty quick. I think it's within the first 20. For the gameplay, I think this game is absolutely fantastic even today. Some people say that the combat is outdated, and yes, it is an older game. The combat does feel a bit outdated. However, I think because they went with this turn-based type combat, it's at least very easy to understand today, very clear, it's easy to strategize and, take out who you need to first. If they had gone with a more action, hack and slash type combat, I think that would probably wind up feeling even more clunky and more outdated today. So I really think it's not so bad. But to be fair, the reason you play this game, especially today, is not for the combat, but for the story, the dialogue, and the characters. This game has a fantastic story, the voice acting is excellent, and the characters are very memorable and distinct. After you do all this tweaking, I think this game is actually a really good play on Steam Deck. Even without the shortcuts, this game is very playable with just the mouse. If you forget what a shortcut is, it's normally really easy to just click on something. And even though it is an older game, the video looks pretty crisp after turning on FSR, and the black bars really don't bother me that much, especially with the Steam Deck's 16:10 ratio. This game will get you about 4 hours of battery life on the Steam Deck, and if you drop the frame rate to 40 frames per second, you can get even closer to 6 hours of battery life. But for me, 4 hours is plenty. For that nice 60 FPS. And it does run at a pretty consistent 60 FPS. You'll get an occasional drop to 48 frames or something, but it'll be for just a second. It's more of a stutter. After tweaking the video and controls, I would rate this game a good experience on the Steam Deck. But that's it for me. Please subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Maybe get some game recommendations your way on Steam Deck. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic at time of recording is just $10 on Steam, and then anytime they have one of their sales, it always drops to $3.50. Quite the steal. That's it for me. Please subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Thanks. See ya.